Lena thought Damian was the man of her dreams, a wealthy lord, ready to sweep her into a life of luxury. But 2 months before their wedding, a chilling discovery shattered everything. Damian's fortune was a carefully constructed lie, and behind his charm lurked a dangerous scam that threatened to destroy not only her future but everyone she loved. What secrets was Damian hiding, and how far would he go to keep them buried? Lena Morgan's life had always been ordinary, simple, even. She worked as a graphic designer in a small city, enjoyed quiet weekends, and dreamed of something bigger, something extraordinary. That dream seemed to come true the day she met Damian Carlisle. He was unlike anyone she had ever known, tall, impeccably dressed, with a mysterious charm that drew her in instantly. Damian wasn't just wealthy, he was what people whispered about, but rarely saw, a modern-day lord, with the kind of elegance that belonged in old stories and movies. To Lena, he was a glimpse of a life she had only imagined. Their relationship moved fast, but every moment felt like a fairy tale. Damian's world was filled with lavish dinners at exclusive restaurants, luxury cars parked outside grand hotels, and invitations to private events where only the elite mingled. He spoke of his family estate, a sprawling mansion that had been in his bloodline for centuries. Stories about aristocratic balls, ancestral portraits, and secret libraries fascinated Lena, making her feel like she had stepped into a timeless novel. When Damian proposed, it was everything she had ever dreamed of. On a yacht overlooking a shimmering sunset, he slid a sparkling ring onto her finger. Lena's heart soared, and for a moment, the world seemed perfect. The ring wasn't just a symbol of their love, it was a promise of a new life, one filled with wealth, status, and happiness. Everyone around her admired the engagement. Friends told her she had found her prince, but beneath the excitement, a quiet voice in Lena's mind whispered doubts she tried to ignore. She started noticing small things, details that didn't quite add up. The way Damian's phone always buzzed with secretive messages, which he quickly hid when she glanced over. The inconsistencies in his stories about his family, like a missing detail here or a name that changed slightly there. Once she tried to visit the estate he boasted about, but he said it was undergoing repairs and too far to visit for now. These tiny cracks in the perfect image planted seeds of suspicion, but Lena brushed them away, afraid to spoil the dream. Then came the invitation to meet Damian's closest friends. They were all charming, but evasive when she asked about his background. At one party, an elegant woman casually mentioned that she hadn't seen Damian at any family reunions or public events tied to nobility. The remark lingered in Lena's mind, but the warmth of Damian's smile kept her hope alive. As the weeks passed, the pressure to finalize wedding plans grew. Invitations were sent, expensive dresses ordered, and venues booked. Damian seemed happy, even excited. Yet, Lena's curiosity deepened. What if everything wasn't as it seemed? What if this perfect world was just a carefully built illusion? One rainy afternoon, Lena sat alone in their penthouse apartment, the city lights flickering through the window. She picked up Damian's laptop left unattended and hesitated. A part of her wanted to trust him blindly, but another part begged for answers. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart pounding with a strange mix of fear and determination. She needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. That moment marked the beginning of a journey that would shatter everything Lena believed in. She didn't yet realize how deeply Damian's life was woven with lies, nor how close she was to uncovering a secret far darker than she could have imagined. The dream was about to crack wide open, revealing a shadowy world where wealth was a mask and love a carefully orchestrated game. As Lena stared at the screen, her mind raced. What would she find? Was Damian really the man he claimed to be, or was there something sinister lurking beneath the surface? The answer was waiting, hidden in plain sight, ready to change her life forever. Lena couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled over her since that rainy afternoon. The doubts gnawed at her, persistent and uncomfortable. Damian's polished world of luxury suddenly seemed fragile, like glass that might shatter with the slightest pressure. She knew she had to find out more, but the question was where to start. Damian was careful, almost too careful. His digital life was locked behind passwords, and his explanations for inconsistencies always sounded plausible. But Lena wasn't willing to be deceived anymore. Her best chance came from Max, a childhood friend and a tech whiz who had always been curious and sharp-eyed. Max had helped her fix her own computer before, and she trusted him completely. Hesitant but desperate, Lena confided in him about her suspicions. She didn't mention everything, just enough to make him understand that something wasn't right. Max agreed to help discreetly. If there was a hint of dishonesty hiding in Damian's digital footprint, Max would find it. One evening, when Damian was out for a business meeting, Max arrived at Lena's apartment. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from the soft glow of the laptop screen. Max connected a special device to Damian's laptop, a tool designed to recover hidden or deleted files, something only someone with his skills could manage. Lena watched nervously as lines of code and folders flashed across the screen. Max's fingers moved quickly, eyes scanning for anything unusual. Minutes passed, stretching longer than Lena expected. Then Max paused, his face serious. He clicked on a file named Financial Overview, buried deep in a hidden folder. The file opened, revealing a strange ledger filled with unfamiliar company names and transactions that made no sense. Some companies didn't exist anywhere else online. Others seemed to be shell companies, empty fronts with no real business activity. Lena leaned closer. The numbers didn't add up. Large sums of money moved between these phantom companies, almost like a complicated game of hide-and-seek. The more they examined the data, the clearer it became. Whoever owned these companies was funneling money through fake accounts, making it nearly impossible to trace. Max muttered that this looked like a classic scam, money laundering designed to trick investors and authorities. The shock hit Lena like a punch. Could Damian be behind all this? The charming, wealthy man who had promised her a life of luxury might actually be running a dangerous scheme, yet she couldn't fully accept it. Damian had never seemed the type to hurt anyone, but then again, people were good at hiding their true selves. Max cautioned Lena to be careful. If Damian discovered that she was digging into his affairs, he might react badly. There was no telling how far he was willing to go to protect his secret. The stakes were suddenly higher than she imagined. This was no longer about a broken heart or a shattered dream. It was about uncovering the truth before it was too late. In the days that followed, Lena's paranoia grew. She noticed Damian's phone calls became more guarded, his answers more vague. He started leaving the apartment at odd hours, always glancing back to check if she was watching. Lena kept the ledger hidden on a secure USB, going over the files repeatedly, searching for patterns, for clues. She cross-checked company names, addresses, and transactions, uncovering dead ends and false trails. Her mind raced with questions. Who were the people behind these companies? Were there victims, like her, who had been deceived? Could she stop Damian before the wedding? Every discovery brought new layers of mystery and danger, pulling her deeper into a web of lies. Despite her fear, Lena felt a strange determination growing inside her. This wasn't just about her anymore. If Damian was a scammer, he needed to be stopped. Not only for her sake, but for anyone who might fall into his trap. But how do you fight someone who seems to have vanished behind a mask of wealth and power? That night, as rain tapped softly on the window, Lena stared at the ledger once more. She knew the truth was buried somewhere in those confusing numbers, waiting for her to uncover it. But every step she took closer felt like walking on thin ice. The dream she once cherished was unraveling, and the deeper she looked, the darker the secrets became. Her next move had to be cautious yet decisive. Damian was no ordinary man, and Lena was about to find out just how dangerous the truth could be. Lena's discovery of the suspicious ledger had ignited a fire she couldn't put out. She wasn't just curious anymore, she was determined to uncover the full truth about Damian. The more she thought about it, the more she realized how fragile the picture Damian painted was: luxury and wealth without any real proof. Now armed with the strange financial document Max had uncovered, she set out to dig deeper into Damian's world. Her first step was to investigate the companies listed in the ledger. Some names seemed familiar, but most were obscure and almost impossible to trace. Lena spent hours online, cross-referencing addresses and phone numbers, but many of them led nowhere. Some addresses were just empty lots or small office spaces rented for a few months and then abandoned. It was as if these companies had been created to exist only on paper, designed to vanish the moment anyone tried to look closer. Determined not to give up, Lena reached out to a former business journalist she had once met at a charity event, Jared Knox. Jared was known for exposing corporate scandals, and she hoped he could help make sense of the maze Damian had built. When she showed Jared the ledger and explained her suspicions, his face turned serious. He told her these shell companies were classic tools for scams, fake entities used to siphon money without any real operations. What shocked Lena the most was Jared's revelation that several investors associated with these companies had disappeared mysteriously. Some had reported huge losses, others simply vanished from the public eye, their names scrubbed from online records. It was clear Damian wasn't just running a small con, he was involved in something far bigger and far more dangerous. She felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Was Damian responsible for ruining these people's lives? Every step Lena took only deepened the mystery. She tried to verify Damian's claims about his wealth and properties, but every lead fizzled out. The supposed ancestral estate was an elaborate facade, rented for a photo shoot that Damian had arranged just weeks before she met him. Friends in high society had never seen Damian at any family gatherings or social circles connected to nobility. His connections were thin and often unverifiable. Lena's growing anxiety was matched only by her need for answers. She started to piece together a pattern. Damian's so-called empire was a carefully crafted illusion designed to impress and trap. It was like a spider's web, glistening and beautiful, but deadly for anyone caught in it. And Lena was at the center, dangerously close to becoming a victim herself. Her growing suspicion made her more cautious. Damian's behavior began to change subtly. He grew distant, avoiding questions about his work and family. Once she overheard a hurried phone conversation where Damian's voice was tense, warning someone about an unexpected problem. Lena's heart raced. Was she the problem? Had Damian noticed her digging? In the darkest moments, she felt utterly alone. Trust, once abundant, was now shattered. She wanted to confront Damian but feared the consequences. What if she was wrong? What if the man she loved was innocent, and she was destroying everything based on false assumptions? But the ledger and the empty company addresses told a different story, one that was hard to ignore. One evening, Lena sat in her apartment surrounded by files, notes and screenshots. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. It was brief: "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Fear clenched her chest, but something inside her pushed back harder. This was no longer just a personal betrayal, this was a dangerous game with real risks. Lena realized that unraveling Damian's web was like walking through a minefield. One wrong step, and everything could explode. Yet the more danger she sensed, the more determined she became. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore, she was fighting for truth, for justice, and for the countless unknown victims trapped in Damian's shadow. As she closed her laptop that night, Lena understood one thing clearly. The man she thought she was going to marry was not the man he pretended to be. The lavish lifestyle was a mask, the love was a lie, and beneath it all was a world darker than she could have imagined, one she had no choice but to confront. The nightmare was only beginning. Lena's search for the truth about Damian grew more urgent, as every lead she followed seemed to slip further out of reach. The pieces didn't fit. The financial schemes were just one part of a much bigger puzzle, and one glaring question haunted her. Who was Damian Carlisle, really? If his wealth was fabricated, then what about his past? The stories he told about his family, his lineage, his roots. She started digging into Damian's background, with a relentless curiosity. What little public information existed painted a confusing picture. Damian had carefully erased or altered most records connected to his identity. Birth certificates, school records, even social media profiles were scarce, incomplete, or strangely inconsistent. Every time she thought she'd found a lead, it ended in a dead end or a contradiction. Lena turned to private investigators, hoping professionals could uncover something she couldn't. The investigators reported back with unsettling news. Damian's origins were murky at best. There were no verifiable ties to any noble families, no record of his parents, no documented history of the aristocratic estate he claimed was his ancestral home. It was as if Damian had been born out of thin air, a ghost in a world that demanded proof. The so-called family estate became a central mystery. Damian spoke often about its grandeur, the sprawling gardens, the ancient portraits, the secret passageways known only to family members. Yet every time Lena asked to see it, Damian had a reason to postpone. Repairs, private events, or sudden business emergencies kept the visits from happening. The more she pushed, the more evasive he became. Lena decided to take matters into her own hands. One weekend, while Damian was away, she hired a local real estate agent to investigate the address Damian gave as the location of the estate. The agent returned with photos and a report. The estate was nothing more than a rented mansion used briefly for a photo shoot and then abandoned. The landlord had never met Damian and was shocked to learn the property was being represented as part of a noble lineage. This revelation hit Lena like a wave. Damian had been living a lie on a grand scale, weaving an elaborate fantasy to convince her and everyone else that he was a man of wealth and heritage. But why? What was the purpose behind this carefully crafted illusion? She dug deeper into Damian's social circles, trying to find anyone who could confirm his story. Friends, acquaintances, even former employees were evasive or denied knowing much about his past. One woman she met at a gala whispered that Damian rarely stayed in one place for long, always moving from city to city, leaving behind whispers and rumors but no concrete facts. Then came the discovery of a strange detail. Damian's passport and identity documents seemed inconsistent. The birth date changed in different versions, and the place of birth was listed differently depending on the country issuing the document. It was as if Damian had created multiple identities to cover his tracks. Fear and curiosity tangled inside Lena. If Damian was not who he said he was, what else was false? Was he hiding from someone or something? Had he built this elaborate persona to escape a dark past? Every unanswered question deepened the shadows around him. At night, Lena would lie awake, the silence broken only by the hum of the city below. She pictured Damian's smooth smile and wondered how much of it was real. The man she thought she knew was vanishing behind layers of deception. What if the charming lover was just a mask for something far more dangerous? Despite the growing dread, Lena's determination hardened. She wasn't going to be fooled any longer. The truth was out there, tangled in lies and secrets, waiting to be pulled free. But with every revelation, the stakes rose. Damian was more than a charming scammer. He was a master of illusion, and exposing him would not come without a price. As Lena stared out the window one cold evening, she knew that uncovering Damian's hidden past was the key to everything. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and filled with shadows. But she had no choice but to follow it, no matter where it led, because sometimes the darkest secrets lie not in what people show you, but in what they desperately try to hide. Lena's investigation into Damian's hidden past only deepened the mystery, but it also uncovered something far more disturbing. He wasn't working alone. As she pieced together the fragmented clues, a name kept resurfacing in whispered conversations and encrypted messages. Elena. No one spoke openly about her, but the shadows around her presence were unmistakable. Elena was Damian's childhood friend, or so the stories suggested. Unlike Damian's elusive and fabricated background, Elena seemed to have a more visible existence, yet it was shrouded in secrecy. Lena first heard about her from a hacker friend, who specialized in tracking digital footprints. According to the data, Elena managed several of the shell companies listed in Damian's suspicious ledger. She wasn't just an assistant or a business partner. She was the mastermind behind the financial operations, the one keeping the scam running smoothly. Lena's heart raced at the thought of this accomplice. If Damian was the charming face, Elena was the shadowy brain orchestrating the money trails and covering their tracks. The realization that the scam was not a one-man show changed everything. This was a well-planned, coordinated scheme that had likely been in motion for years. Determined to learn more, Lena and Max began searching for Elena's digital presence. But Elena was a ghost. Every social media profile linked to her vanished or had false information. Every email address traced led to dead ends or burner accounts that disappeared after a few weeks. It was like chasing smoke. One night, while scanning an encrypted chat forum frequented by scammers and fraudsters, Max found a message that mentioned Elena's name with a warning: "Elena disappears if you come too close." The ominous tone sent a chill down Lena's spine. Someone out there knew just how dangerous Elena was. Desperate to connect the dots, Lena reached out to a former financial investigator who had recently retired but had experience with international fraud rings. The investigator confirmed that Elena's name had appeared in several investigations, but no one had ever managed to track her down. She was a ghost in the system, an expert at erasing every trace of her existence. Then came the unexpected breakthrough. Max managed to hack into a private server connected to one of Damian's companies, discovering an encrypted folder labeled Elena. Inside were documents detailing transfers, contact lists, and coded instructions. It was proof that Elena was deeply embedded in the operation, controlling the flow of money and manipulating data to keep their scam hidden from authorities. Lena realized how carefully Elena covered their tracks. Every time Lena thought she was close, Elena was already a step ahead, deleting files, wiping servers, and cutting digital ties. It was as if Elena had eyes everywhere, watching, protecting Damian's secrets at all costs. The more Lena uncovered, the more dangerous the situation became. Strange phone calls with silence on the other end. Shadowy figures following her at night. Emails warning her to stop digging. It was clear Elena and Damian were aware of her investigation, and they were not going to let her ruin their plans without a fight. Fear mingled with determination. Lena knew she had to stay one step ahead, but Elena's skill at disappearing made that nearly impossible. Every lead she followed seemed to evaporate before her eyes, and the web of lies tightened around her like a noose. Despite the mounting danger, Lena refused to back down. This wasn't just about exposing Damian anymore. It was about stopping a sophisticated criminal network that preyed on innocent people. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure wasn't an option. As Lena sat in her apartment, surrounded by fragments of evidence and encrypted files, she felt a chilling sense of urgency. Elena was the key to unraveling the entire scam. If she could find Elena, she could find the truth. But finding someone who didn't want to be found was like chasing a phantom in the dark. In the quiet hours before dawn, Lena stared at her screen, knowing that every second counted. Elena was out there, somewhere, watching, waiting, ready to vanish again at the slightest threat. The game had changed, and Lena was no longer just a victim, she was a hunter. The next move would be critical. One wrong step, and the secrets Elena and Damian protected so fiercely could disappear forever. But Lena had come too far to stop now. The shadows had eyes, and they were closing in, yet she was ready to face whatever darkness awaited, because sometimes the only way to find the light was to walk through the darkest night. The pressure on Lena grew heavier with each passing day. Her discovery of Elena's involvement had escalated the situation far beyond a simple broken heart or a personal betrayal. This was a well-oiled machine of deception and danger, and Lena had unwittingly stepped right into its path. She felt watched, hunted, like a small animal caught in a predator's glare. Her usual routines shattered. She avoided public places, changed her routes, and even considered moving out of her apartment. Yet despite the fear, there was no turning back. Every new piece of information drew her deeper, pulling her into a labyrinth where trust was impossible, and every shadow could hide a threat. One night, a flicker of hope appeared in the most unexpected way. While scanning through encrypted emails she had intercepted from Damian's accounts, Lena found a cryptic message. A string of numbers and letters that didn't match any code she'd seen before. Max was stumped too. They both sensed it was important. But breaking through the encryption required more than their current skills. Determined, Lena turned to an old friend from university, Priya, a cryptographer who worked with law enforcement on cybercrimes. Priya was hesitant to get involved initially, warning Lena about the dangers of tangling with such powerful criminals. But Lena's insistence, fueled by desperation and resolve, convinced her. Priya began working on the code immediately. Days passed in tense silence, with Lena anxiously waiting for progress. Then late one evening, Priya called. The code wasn't just random, it was a hidden address and a time, a meeting place. A trap or a chance to finally confront the shadowy forces behind Damian and Elena. The message pointed to a remote warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Lena's heart pounded. This could be the break she had been waiting for. Or the end of everything she had worked toward. She debated telling the police, but feared the investigation would tip off Damian and Elena, making her precious lead vanish. With Max and Priya's reluctant support, Lena decided to go herself. They prepared carefully, arranging for backup nearby. But Lena knew she might have to face whatever was waiting alone. The night was thick with fog as she approached the warehouse, its silhouette looming like a dark secret against the mist. Inside, the air was cold and heavy with silence. Lena's footsteps echoed as she moved cautiously through the cavernous space. Suddenly, faint voices drifted from the far end, low, urgent, careful. She edged closer, heart racing, straining to catch fragments of conversation. The voices spoke of the wedding, final stages, and cleanup. Lena's stomach twisted. It was clear Damian and Elena were planning something big, something that could ruin more lives if she didn't stop them. But who were the other voices? Were they accomplices? Threat? A shadow shifted nearby, and Lena ducked behind a stack of crates. Her breath caught as footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. Someone was coming, someone who wasn't meant to see her here. She held her breath, hoping to remain invisible, but her phone buzzed suddenly in her pocket. Panic surged through her. The faint light from the screen betrayed her hiding spot. A harsh voice demanded to know who was there. Lena's heart hammered as a figure stepped into the light. Tall, imposing, face hidden under a hood. The chase was on. Lena ran, the warehouse twisting into a maze of shadows and dead ends. She could hear footsteps behind her growing closer, the heavy thud of pursuit echoing in the hollow space. Her mind raced. Every door, every passage was a potential escape or trap. Bursting through an exit, she plunged into the cold night air, lungs burning, legs aching. Behind her, the figure hesitated, then gave chase into the fog. Lena didn't look back. She sprinted toward the safety of the streetlights, where Max and Priya waited anxiously. Safe but shaken, Lena realized just how close she was to the edge. Damian and Elena's world was not just lies, it was a dangerous game with real threats. The wedding she had once looked forward to now seemed like a ticking bomb, a final move in a deadly con. The encounter at the warehouse changed everything. There was no turning back. Lena was caught in a web of deception and danger far greater than she ever imagined. Every step forward was perilous, but she was determined to see it through. As dawn broke, casting pale light over the city, Lena's resolve hardened. The shadows were closing in, but she wasn't alone. With friends she trusted and a will unbroken, she would fight to uncover the truth and stop the nightmare before it consumed her completely. After the chilling escape from the warehouse, Lena knew the stakes had never been higher. The glimpse into Damian and Elena's plans revealed a dark urgency. Something was about to happen, and it could shatter more lives than she had imagined. The wedding date loomed just weeks away, and with every hour the danger tightened its grip. Lena's nights became restless, haunted by shadows that seemed to lurk even in the brightest daylight. Damian's carefully crafted mask was crumbling, replaced by a ruthless figure orchestrating a grand scheme. But the more she uncovered, the more questions piled up. What was the final goal? Was the wedding just a ceremony, or did it mask a far greater scam? Determined to find answers, Lena and Max dove deeper into Damian's financial empire. The ledger was only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it lay a complex network of fake investments, offshore accounts and shell companies scattered across continents. Every trail led to dead ends or cryptic codes designed to confuse and mislead. Then, an unexpected lead surfaced, an old associate of Damian's named Victor. Unlike Damian and Elena, Victor's presence was more visible, though cloaked in ambiguity. Lena discovered that Victor had been cut off from the inner circle shortly before Damian met her, but his role had been pivotal in the early stages of the scam. Tracking Victor down wasn't easy. He was cautious, evasive, living in a rundown apartment far from the glittering world Damian had portrayed. When Lena finally confronted him, he was reluctant, eyes flickering with fear and regret. But desperation made him talk. Victor revealed a horrifying truth. Damian's scam wasn't just about money. It involved manipulating wealthy families into marrying into their scheme, using marriages as legal cover to transfer assets and launder money undetected. The wedding wasn't a celebration. It was the final step in securing control over Lena's family fortune. Elena's role was even darker. She had masterminded the financial operations, ensuring that once Damian legally married into a family, their combined wealth would be siphoned into the shadow network. The victims were not only investors but innocent families caught in a deadly game of trust and betrayal. Lena's blood ran cold. She was not just a target, she was a prize in a ruthless con designed to trap and destroy. Victor's warning was clear: if she went through with the wedding, she would lose everything, and possibly much more. Fear warred with determination. Lena had to protect herself, but she also had to expose Damian and Elena before they could harm anyone else. The question was how. Damian's influence stretched far, and the network was vast. Every step she took was shadowed by danger. Then came the ultimate twist. Victor disclosed that Elena had grown increasingly paranoid. Damian's charm was fading, replaced by cold calculation and desperation. Elena feared betrayal from within, and was planning to disappear, taking the money and leaving Damian exposed. Their partnership was fracturing, and the wedding was a ticking clock to cement their plan before everything unraveled. Lena realized she could use this growing tension against them. If she could provoke Elena's paranoia, maybe she could force a mistake, a crack in their perfect illusion. But doing so meant diving deeper into their world, risking exposure and danger. With Victor's help, Lena began gathering irrefutable evidence. Hidden contracts, forged documents, audio recordings, each piece a dagger aimed at the heart of the scam. The deadline was approaching, and the weight of the truth pressed heavily on her shoulders. Her every move was shadowed by suspicion and fear. Damian's sudden coldness, Elena's mysterious disappearances, and whispers of a final plan all pointed to a storm about to break. Lena knew that once the truth was revealed, nothing would be the same. The night before the wedding, Lena sat alone in her apartment. The evidence spread around her like a grim map of betrayal. She felt a mixture of exhaustion and fierce resolve. Tomorrow, everything would come to a head. As the city lights flickered outside, Lena understood that the final chapter of her story was about to be written. The man she loved was a liar. The woman behind the scenes was a ghost. And Lena herself had become the last hope to stop a nightmare from consuming everyone she cared about. The game was no longer about love or trust. It was about survival, justice, and the harsh price of desertion. The wedding day would mark the end of innocence and the beginning of a reckoning. The morning of the wedding dawned cold and gray. the sky heavy with clouds as if the world itself sensed the storm about to break. Lena felt a strange mix of dread and clarity, knowing this day would change everything. The elaborate ceremony, the guests, the smiles, all were part of a carefully constructed facade, hiding a dangerous truth. She was no longer the hopeful bride, but a woman on the edge of exposing a devastating deception. The venue was a grand estate, chosen not for its beauty, but for its symbolism. The same place Damian had had about, though Lena now knew it was borrowed, a rented illusion like so much else in his life. The guests arrived, dressed in finery, unaware that beneath the glitz lay secrets that could shatter their world. Behind the scenes, Lena moved with quiet determination. Victor stayed close, a shadowy guardian offering protection and guidance. Priya monitored the digital communications, scanning for any sign of interference or threats. Max was on standby, ready to alert the authorities the moment Lena gave the signal. They were ready to expose Damian and Elena's scam once and for all. But the tension was palpable. Damian was different today. His usual charm replaced by a cold, calculating calm that sent chills down Lena's spine. Elena was nowhere to be seen, adding to the unease. Rumors spread that she had disappeared suddenly, perhaps sensing the unraveling of their plan. As the ceremony began, Lena's mind raced. She recalled every lie, every forged document, every warning and threat. The vows, spoken with practiced ease by Damian, felt like poison sealing a trap. But Lena was ready, not to say "I do," but to shatter the illusion. Just as Damian reached for her hand to complete the ceremony, the doors burst open. Police officers flooded the room, their presence electrifying the stunned crowd. Lena stepped forward, holding a thick folder filled with evidence, contracts, bank statements, recordings, proof of the massive scam. The room erupted in chaos. Damian's face paled, the mask slipping to reveal panic and rage. Elena appeared at the back, disheveled and cornered, eyes wild with fear. The perfect facade crumbled as officers moved swiftly to arrest both of them. In the following hours, secrets spilled out. Damian's web of lies was laid bare. The fake companies, the manipulated investments, the families destroyed. Elena's role as the shadow operator was confirmed. Victims came forward, shocked and grateful, their stories adding weight to the charges. Lena stood quietly, watching justice unfold. The man she had almost married was now a criminal exposed, stripped of his lies. The woman who had controlled the dark machinery behind the scam was caught, her disappearance ending in a cell. But the victory was bittersweet. Trust had been shattered. The life Lena had dreamed of was lost, replaced by scars only time could heal. Yet, through the pain she found strength. She had faced the darkness and refused to be broken. Months later, as the trial concluded with convictions and restitution orders, Lena began rebuilding her life. The nightmare was over, but the lessons remained, a reminder that appearances can deceive and truth, though sometimes buried deep, always finds a way to surface. Her story, once a tale of love and betrayal, became a beacon for others caught in similar webs. Lena shared her experience, warning against blind trust and the dangers of illusion. Her journey was a testament to courage, resilience, and the power of uncovering truth, no matter how dark the path. The shadows that once haunted her now lay behind, a fading memory in the bright light of a new beginning. And as she moved forward, Lena knew she was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, forever changed but unbroken, ready to face whatever came next.